Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, Rotarians and all colleagues in peace. I'm Jim Alderman, Chair of the District 5450 Peace Committee that sponsors the Forum for Discussion. AI is certainly a prominent subject today on all of our minds. Oh, it's feared, it's damned, and it's praised for what it can do. We're honored this evening to have an individual that has expertise on all of the good and the bad AI can bring. I assume all have read the extensive background of our presenter. But what he did not tell us in the bio is that he is now also a best-selling author of fiction. The Snipes Screech is an uplifting story of how all can prevail over our challenges. So tonight, please help me welcome our presenter for this program, Colonel Dean Clemons.
Thanks, Jim. Can everybody hear me okay? Somebody give me a thumbs up. All right, awesome. Jim, if you'd bring up the little slideshow I gave. So everyone, I just real quickly, I wrote out a few notes for this conversation and presentation. What we'll do is if something strikes your fancy about it, I'm willing to talk about any element out of sequence. I don't need to speak in a dull chronological manner. I'm happy to be engaged, and in fact, I prefer to speak that way. So, as Jim said, I have a considerable background in cybersecurity. When I was in the Air Force, I was a communication and intelligence officer, and I bring to the table today a few. War stories around really the precursor to the current day AI and some of the initiatives that are at our forefront now. Um, specifically, I'll talk a little bit about Bosnia and how I was part of the team that did the global broadcast system for the zones of separation. So I'll talk a little bit about that and how that might come into play. I'm also familiar with the U.S. UN missions of support and stability in Libya, and the DRC, not China, Democratic Republic of China, but rather the Congo. So I'm familiar with those as well. I was the coalition advisor to the Iraqi Minister of Defense in 2007, 2008. And in that role, I saw some of the aspirational elements of intelligence gathering, and how to create disinformation, which is one of the both the pros and one of the cons of AI, how it can be used, how it can be employed. So, any questions around peacekeeping efforts, I absolutely welcome, and I'll try to put some individual flavor on that as we go. I think many of us realize now that AI is really a two sided coin here. There's some aspirational elements that are AI that are founded in of goodness, and there are other aspirational elements that are found in evil. And the more that we learn, certainly in the peacekeeping and peace and the stability, security, the stability are actually paramount to the success of both um, UN aspirations and individual aspirations of some of the countries that are associated with groups. So I heard one gentleman mention that I guess it was Jim Adams mentioned the use of or his service in the UK. I will say the EU, not the UK, is actually leading in many of the efforts around AI and governance. And you'll see throughout my presentation here that the as many of us know, weak institutions around national and international coalition activity, those weak institutions around governance, currency, um, regional cooperation, even law, rule of law, are all suspect and are at somewhat of the mercy of AI now. I'm, as you may have gathered, I'm a cybersecurity specialist, and the nexus between cybersecurity and the nascent elements and asset elements of AI are absolutely astronomical. The number of cybersecurity aided or AI aided cybersecurity attacks has grown in the last 18 months by about 1,300, over 1,000% in just in the last 18 months. Those of you who are familiar with the the Moore's law of old, where technology changed every 18 months. That was essentially based on a ability to create chips and whatnot, and the electronic element. Now with AI, it's much more accelerated than that, and frankly, both dangerous and putting the optimist lens on is also has some opportunities that we as peacekeepers and those of us who wish to have a stable world in which all manner of peoples can thrive. It's really critical. So I'll pause there, hesitate just a little bit. So if anybody has any questions, while Jim goes to the next slide. Jim, if you go to the next slide, anyone have any questions immediately?
Yeah. Um, I'm going to have to go out and come back in. I'm sorry.
Okay. So when this next slide comes up, that's great. So
Is that it?
let me talk.
No,
I don't see anything quite yet, Jim, but
of
that's
course you
okay.
don't. Of course you don't. I've got to share it first.
Okay.
I have done this once before, but
All right. The I'm going to ask for additional questions as we go along, guys. So don't leave me out here. I, I just want to do a couple definitions and implications discussion here. The lot the misgivings around AI is that a lot of people have this notion that it's something new. Really, AI is really just a manifestation of the technology that has been evolving um,
yes.
and undergoing a revolution that allows these machines with huge petabyte type of data sets. So what you may have heard of this understanding of the huge demand and draw on electrical grids and electrical systems as these data centers are built out for AI. And the reason for that is that the new GPUs and the TPUs, essentially the chips, if you will, that allow for graphics and visual, less so text, but they certainly use text in AI. A good example there is that we're all very familiar with now. It's the Chat GPT generative pre-trained models, and those are a huge energy drags. In addition to the impact of, since they're so complex and energy driven, they also create a lot of heat. So if you look at, I see your point here, Rita. That's exactly right. The health and as well as the growing a mid-range data center um, has the electrical draw of about 5 million homes. So, if you take about take a look what Maxine is experiencing in the BC province. So you have three or four data centers. It could take the equivalent of all of British Columbia. So it's pretty obtrusive, to say the least. But I want to talk more about the use of, so it's essentially having these computers doing these human tasks, centered around intelligence, disinformation, obfuscation, all words used traditionally in intelligence and espionage throughout the world, throughout time. It's a new tool to execute an old practice or a number of old practices. So what I kind of like about AI has great capabilities to support digital mediation. So if you do a dialogue and try to get and Jim's book probably talks about this. If you have a monologue, you're not really communicating unless the information is received and acknowledged. So the mediation is probably one of the most complex human endeavors in the past, which relied extensively on trust, stability, and shared aspirations. Now, a lot of times, mediators are brought to the table with one or more of those I just mentioned at risk or in question. So, having a common shared AI assisted dialogue around the standards, the terms and the T's and C's, these contractual language around how we're going, not only how we're going to mediate, what we're going to mediate, but how we're going to mediate, and what is our shared outcome. So that has potential, but it's also being used in conflict prediction. So if you look at, I worked for Raytheon Technologies in the space and intelligence division, and a lot of our efforts are around observing the Earth or points on the Earth and watching, monitoring human migrations due to conflict, the climatology that is often the source of drought or great drought, which in fact in turn resorts to famine, and famine drives a lot of human activity, a human movement, to include genocide and just assimilation of one group over the other. So conflict prediction around some of those sources that are AI added is super. And also, if you look at what's going on in Gaza, there's two elements of Gaza that are both heartwarming and heartbreaking. The primary use of AI in Gaza has been from the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and it's been primarily used for targeting, military targeting. I know there's a couple of military guys on here. Certainly a 60s Air Force pilot can appreciate that. In the need for targeting, and but now that it's AI aided, it gets more precise, and with the burgeoning precision weapons, it can be targeted and pinpointed, but it also can be used for non-treaty compliance issues. So it's got, again, it's the pros and cons around having this new technology, or the technology that's used for old aspirations and old desires, human desires. another element I like about AI. I found this in Bosnia. It's through Rwanda, Uganda. Pick an a two couple border nations that have used landmines or are still experiencing UXOs in the borderlands or the DMZ zones. UXO is unexploded ordnance. Sorry, I just looked up, realized what I had written. Um, so just as another definition around is the voice. I'm using AI and voice, changing, altering, changing my voice to sound like Jim and overlaying Jim's image on where my visual might be on the screen today. It could be used for nefarious purposes, and in some cases, it could be used for ambitions outside of the normal peace channel. But I want to leave you with that as we leave this slide is it's not hypothetical. AI is being used. There's what 130, 120, 130 armed conflicts currently in the world. And to some degree, AI is being used in probably two-thirds of those, 80% even. So that's I just want you to get in your thought pattern here as peacekeepers and those interested in peace, how we can utilize the AI structures and the governance, the tool sets around furthering peace in the world, as opposed to letting some of the nefarious actors use it, and some state and non-state actors' use of AI can be, um, you know, used for evil. So I'll stop there while Jim goes to the next slide and take any questions around those initial thoughts.
Here we go again. Sorry.
Um,
Not
all
sure
right, so
why.
all right, Joe, I'm going to start pointing people out here. Joe, you have to ask me a question while Jim's doing that.
I'm eager to hear, this is Bob, I'm eager to hear the positive uses. There's a lot of
Yeah,
scary negative uses, but I
yeah,
see that you've already addressed that initially, but I'd like to hear a lot, in a lot more depth about that potential for peace, peacekeeping, peace negotiations, peace mediations. Um,
yeah.
yes, so hopefully that's the direction you'll be going.
Yeah, we are going that way, and you'll see that in more detail here. What I did here, Bob, I covered because I didn't know which regions you all were interested in. So I kind of sprinkled in. So the if you have a particular region, I'll take the Congo DRC DR Congo. So looking at its neighbors, it's what's surrounded by what I hate to count them here, probably 8 or 9 different nations, and having them come to agreement on what truth is, right? What the actual what the what are the shared interests, right? So AI can help them. It can also it's also used in the text screens and the screenings and filters to get a generalized understanding of the populace of the respective nations. So if it would just take you and me and Jim, for instance, if we're nation states, if we publish anything or speak anything and trying to assert our aspirations, the AI can pick that up and with the proper filters, provide a common understanding what those shared interests are. In where in past, um, you know, I guess I'll just use an Iraqi experience. We were sitting in the Baghdad op cell, and we couldn't get five people, well, seven people from the same nation with the common understanding of what the objective was. So you can imagine the complexity of trying to do that in this case, eight or nine different nation states with they're all individualized agendas. But having, if they have expressed it, AI can derive it, or collect it, derive it, and analyze it for common mediation purposes. I think that's one of the huge gains, Bob, that has the potential for mediation and resolution. Um, some of the some of the foreign ministers and some of the prime ministers, frankly, have agendas that are only really known to them in days of old. Now, if it's documented, AI can find it. Whereas before we were reduced to speculation, and we are often tied to our own bias, right? Well, no one would actually destroy their own waterfront because that would be ridiculous, because that's not what we would do. Well, that's not necessarily true. People are willing to, disrupt the Suez Canal, even though it may very well be to their to the greater good for themselves, but they're willing to, destroy it or fill it with debris or attack other nation flag ships in it. That's really um, it would be onerous in the past and try to undo our own bias or national bias and pick up the common understanding. I think that's one of the biggest in the mediation piece of it. So thank you, Jim, for bringing this up. Here's I'm sorry, Bob, did that answer your question or some of it? I'm getting more detail here in a bit. I was just waiting for the slide to come up.
That's a great start. Thanks.
Yeah, super. So AI and some of the pros here, we launched from Bob's question here. Lot of the atmospherics around common understanding, issues at hand, issues writ large. What importance you can support the peace efforts if if using AI, you can communicate the truth and a shared truth, but also the create a atmosphere around willingness that creates coalitions of the willing to say yes, that I want to be part of this positive peace effort, as opposed to see some of my civilian populace destroyed in some type of military attack. Um, I want to pause here a little bit because I really fully believe that the AI can support and be a positive force in all elements of the national power, and that's typically described with the acronym DIME. So it's the D is for diplomacy, the I is for informational, the M is for military, and the E is for economic. DIME. There's some other letters if you get more. If you want the National War College story, I'll give you that. But I won't bore those of you around that. But just understand, I think there's the nexus between those instruments of power and the potential of AI is extraordinary in helping level set the field and allow for predictive elements of the reaction for both governments and authoritarians in their or totalitarians in their aspirations. So I really that's probably in a sentence, Bob and others, the AI capability to sift information, to um, analyze it and create a potential result that has a peacekeeping, stable regional and national as well as international standards is extraordinary. There's some other sides of my coin I'm sure I'll bring up here in a minute, but just wanted to talk a little bit about how this was evidenced in my career when I was a young captain the around the zones of separation. Those many of us are on this call are old enough to remember with Rob Holbrook's efforts out of Dayton, Ohio, and I happened to be there at the time. Uh, that the zones of separation for the Croats and Serbs, and that was only possible in when we started using video, both aircraft video and so we say satellite video to show where the opposing parties, the respective actors. So having that as an understanding and where we could absolutely declare, down to the 10th Brigade, where they sat on the zones and what conflict was going on. That's extraordinary. So I think having AI now and having the tool sets in space, in air, in some way, in some conflicts undersea, certainly terrestrial and undersea. So having all those zones of regions of surveillance and reconnaissance extraordinary. We're seeing this in the Congo, which is my last element in the pro. I'll talk about the Iraq and Jordan, Gaza here in a minute. Um, I always forget the French name, but it's MONUSCO, essentially the stabilization effort in the Congo. Ability to analyze satellites, sensors, social media, all within milliseconds, as opposed to using a human intelligence that could be flawed or have enough change agents in it in a matter of days or weeks while we're still doing the collection under a human collection element we did in the past. Now with drone satellites, that's all immediately or nearly immediately available and analyzed quickly after. All right, so I wanted, and we can talk more about pros here in a minute. I just want to mention some cons here. That some of these are self-evident, but I think some of them are unique and pertain to the technology. So the if one has an intent to create the animosity or conflict or further the conflict, and there are benefactors to conflict. Certainly, in many of the 130, there's benefits to somebody by maintaining and sustaining the conflict for their own gain, their own wealth, their own tribal or territorial regional aspirations. So not it's not an easy chore what all of you are trying to do for the world, fully recognized here. But sometimes AI can be meant to foment hate, and the truth is often lost why that hate is being furthered by using AI. The other piece problem with the con with AI is these data sets that I talked about, these petabyte and larger data sets. They are they are collective But a lot of time, a lot of the situation is that they were collected over just a few number of people, the nation states that have the potential to create such a database. So that database has an inherent bias oftentimes. So think of an American created to use Jim Adams's point earlier, right? So the if you were wanted to collect all the information for the U.S., it's going to have a bias. But if you wanted the UK with UK agenda founded in that database, both the data itself, and then the structures of the database, and then thirdly, some of the bias associated with it. If you're in England and you are you're a big fan of the King Charles, you might very well have this bias of Charles can do no wrong. I'm not trying to be snarky here, but I'm just trying to have you in your head here as we evaluate how we might use databases as a potential AI source doing queries against these databases. You have to understand they're often funded, then built around those who have a bias. It's sort of like, first question you ask a surveyor is, okay, who paid for the survey, right? Or who paid for the poll? Strangely, if you have a poll derived for the most beautiful fruit and you're in Florida, you're very likely to come up with orange as the answer. So you always understand my point here. I just want to get that. But also, another element of AI, the structures of it that's a kind of a con is the answer, the result gets a little less creative as further away we get from the human endeavor of it. Meaning, hey, we have a very human activity requiring human creativity, but that gets muted when you start using AI and over reliance on AI and the databases and the query structures has an issue to it. So, and then I'll leave this slide with just that the ability for the nexus between cybersecurity, which is my area of interest, and the AI having the ability to disrupt, break altogether, or mute elements of the AI database and its query sets is a real con. So I just wanted on the con side, there is darkness. It's a true darkness reality that sometimes the people with the money and the coin and the bullion, they're the ones that are building these data sets. They're the ones creating the AI, and they are the ones that are providing results to the conflict or the conflict participants under this guise of neutrality, when in fact they have their own agenda. So it's a bit frightening, even on the technical side. All right, I'll pause there while Jim's changing the slide, and I'll ask Maxine to ask me a question. Unless Bob, you want to jump in.
Yeah, I'm not certain I necessarily have a question at this point, but it
Okay.
certainly plays out, in so many levels, even on the social side of things.
Yeah.
And my biggest fear is what it's doing to our teens and young people.
Yeah, I'm married to a teacher, Maxine, just so you'll know here. And so she's a like-minded. She's been like-minded when the screens really start popping up from these kids. But it does she would say, and I think what you're saying in some ways is it's kind of destroying or intruding on creativity and the ability to creatively think and the loss of the loss of the human connection where you're reliant. I think if you went to most undergrads, situations now, I could have probably made this briefing using AI. You know,
Mhm.
um, the the you know and you would have an AI flat answer that is a result of multiple draws, or sometimes it's the loudest noise, it's the loudest result that moves to the front of the queue, right? So if you ask
Mhm.
an AI database, give me the answer to 1 plus 1, you might very well get two. But if you ask it, what are some of the aspirations of Kim Il Jong, and you're going to get a different answer. If Because people are, now that I'm North Korea, they are flooding some of the databases purposely to obscure perhaps the truth, because that's what they know will meet the criteria to pop up first on a Google search, for instance.
Well,
But
exactly, and what can be done with AI to actually fool people into thinking others are performing certain acts or saying certain things, and they're not, right?
Right. They're compliant with treaties. The thing
Yeah.
that's in front here is like, oh yeah, they're not violating because they have answered, XYZ and in
Mhm.
the validation or treaty verification. Ronald Reagan, and many of us are old enough to know him. Uh, his mantra of trust but verify. That sometimes the verify, as we get further down the stroke, the
Yeah.
verify element of this is somewhat being lost.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I agree with you. All right. Jim, I think you said go 40 minutes. I think I'm at 40 minutes. Do you want to look at the last slide? I think we're taking a couple questions here.
I'll bring it up here in a little bit.
Okay. Um,
It was there a second ago, then it disappeared.
all right. Well, let's why that's popping up here. Let's talk a little bit more about. I think I mentioned Gaza, Jordan. I had some experience there in Oman. The elements of it here. Yeah, that's the slide right there, Jim. That's the one I wanted to talk about next. So let me. You can leave it right there. I can read it, so hopefully others can too. Um, the So cybersecurity it has three serious elements to it for data. So you want to, when you do risk, you want to do risk, uh, examples or capabilities around cybersecurity impact. You want to assure or ensure that the what's known as the CIA of the data is maintained. The CIA is not the Central Intelligence Agency. It's confidentiality, integrity, and accuracy of the data. Just as Maxine was talking about, the some of that's being lost, and the inputs are it's just the percentage of inputs on a single subject. You can say that playing Copernicus here, or anti Copernicus, that the Earth does in fact revolve around the sun. Or you can say the sun revolves around the Earth. If you get enough input that you can disrupt the integrity and the accuracy of that data, you can skew the whole view and perspective of the universe. So that the use of cybersecurity and the risk models around and doing just that. I'm proposing, as you think how you might use AI in the future, that having a data set that's validated with a human intervention for it's going to be critical. All right, Rita says, who is overseeing and monitoring AI? Is it each individual company? There are for development, there's some leaders like Rita. So if you think about Google, Alphabet, they're leading much of not so much the governance of it. The governance is kind of um, um, more on the companies of like the Deloitte's, but the control and the development of AI and the tool sets of AI and the algorithms associated AI. Think Dell, think Google, think Zipper, CrowdStrike to some degree. So there's a number of large companies who are benefiting, and you'll see their names tied to, um, you know, Huawei, for instance. They have different agendas as they build out their models, competing with one another. So deep mind, um, the creation of deep fakes, all of which have their own entourage of people and companies that are being financed by both public and private sources for their aspirations. So it's yeah. Thank you, Rita. Okay. Um, I think we talked about disinformation. I talked about Libya. I talked about the predictive element of using AI. I think I've talked about all of those already. So I'm glad to see that the language processors, I touched on that, just to detect hate can be missed by sheer volume. We talked on that. Also, there's privacy concerns, but I think one of the last solutions, one aspect I need to think we need to talk about is probably just the solution. So, Dean, this is all kind of crazy and good and evil and bad and good. So, what are some of your recommendations, Dean? I said the first thing I would probably say is to touch on Rita's question, right? It's a common governance. So um, governance cycles around risk. You think bank risk or financial fraud risk, or they have governance around the technologies, the people that staff it, right? So you want your company or your nation state or your ambassadors of your development work for peacekeeping using AI. They want to draw upon those common risk models, risk governance models that are again uh, used historically for purposes and are now being repurposed or need to be repurposed for this new challenge or this new opportunity, whichever glass set you want for AI, because it's a bit like the Wild Wild West still. And the some of you know I wrote a paper on this when I was at Harvard. This has this has implications around the information resource policies, right? That our current administration and those before it have been struggling with is to set up the cyber sets. They have common needs and common tools that are evolving that need to be understood and directed with punitive penalties if they fall out or they venture outside of the acceptable standard by at least the two conflicting parties. So you cannot get, and I think I've said this 3 or 4 times now, you cannot get to an agreed upon solution or direction without that level of trust that was once found only in men and women sitting across from each other for months on end, weeks on end, trying to establish the ground rules. So AI is partly for that. Okay, I think my time is up, and I'll go to any questions. Okay, that's good. Yeah, so we talked about dime, we talked about Reagan's of trust, but verify. I'm glad I wrote these things down. Uh, uh, get all levels of agreement. That's perfect. Building peace and stand depend on trust. Absolutely. Mutual agreed, strong governance models. I talked on that. Yeah, I think I've said all those things or most of them. So I'm ready for any follow-up questions, Bob.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
In this upgraded, technologically enhanced Orwellian world,
Yeah.
what kinds of guardrails do you see being effective?
Well, I talked about some of them. The effective. That's I think necessary. I don't know if they're going to be effective, or understood to be effective immediately, but I think having a governing body for peacekeeping for all parties associated with the conflict, right? With an equal footing, an equal understanding of definitions. So there needs to be a term of reference, right? The TOR, or if you're a business guy, the T and C's and how we're going to operate, and those T's and C's are agreed to and one of which is the technology around the AI. In fact, what data sets? Because they understand these data sets are the key gain of these data sets is they're trainable. So if something goes off the rails, let's say Panama Canal, right? Since the 80s, it was understood, who owned it and who was going to use it, how it was going to be used, right? And then those are common terms of reference. And AI can get to those and get those understood. And then if there's a departure from those trained data sets around the use of the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal or the Red Sea, whichever you want to talk, those are all applicable, and there's a punitive action to it against those. So it's not all carrot. There should be a bit of at least a switch, maybe not a club, but a switch to say, no, we're not going to advance until these are agreed to, and the AI set data sets or multiple sets, trained and untrained, are to be used. And these are the limitations. These are the boundaries of what this is going to happen. Let's say let's talk about we're going to use yeah, let's see, what's the climatological one? Anyway, it's a huge data set, can't come to me right now, but we are going to use that as the baseline. That is the base to our discussion, and we can see the migrations of peoples from that drought set, that drought appearance, and what it's doing, and the impact. So both financial, legal, rule of law guardrails is where it's gonna, just as it has in peace discussion for a long, long time. Does that help?
How would negative peace be distinguished from positive peace when negative peace would be in instances where it's used to suppress
Yeah.
opposition, and you call it peace when the boot is on the neck.
Yeah.
So difference between negative peace and
Yeah.
actual positive peace.
Yeah. I would fail to answer that myself. I think I would fail at that. Sometimes and we have failed at this as a nation a number of times, where we have declared a peaceful, stable environment where it isn't really peaceful. Actually, you could do the Houthis and the Tutsis. That is in fact resolved, but is not resolved for the peace and the comfort of the people that lost their arms and their limbs and their lives. It just became the exhaustion is not the declaration of peace, or should not be. But I'm not equipped, I think, to give you a good answer, because my heart tells me when everyone's happy. Well, that's in some cases the worldview, including the UN, will accept a negative peace for one member of the conflict if it provides a greater regional stability. So it's a matter of perspective of who's declaring the peace. And the UN has been as guilty. I mean, and look at I mean, Saddam went into Kuwait. He gladly would have called conquering Kuwait as a peace. But obviously the UN resolutions didn't believe him. And then did we achieve peace in there? Well, it's still if you ask the Iranians and many of the Sunni in Iraq, they still haven't. They're still not at peace. So I can't declare that myself. It's a very important question, but I'm just not capable of answering it.
Yeah, that's going into the human element.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, and it's humans are in individual peace, family, tribal peace, uh, uh, or regional peace. So at what point do you declare this is peace? Well, it's not necessarily the end of deaths. Yeah, it's a very esoteric question, but it's an important one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rita. You popped in. I saw it pop up, but I didn't read it. Can you pop it back in or ask me?
I just was mentioning that was listening to several people on NPR uh, talking about the idea of creating data centers out in space. I was just wondering if you've heard that.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk has aspirations of doing data centers in space. The I don't know if it has the ROI to create it anytime soon. I think that the transfer of data, even now under his Starlink architecture, is a little wanting. So I think it's it's I think the access, but as you know, much of the satellite communication structures, they have weaknesses, right? You have a weakness on the terrestrial component of it, where the dishes, frankly, are wanting for the data. There's the communication link up to the satellites in space, and then the ability to process the intelligence in space. So I think I know Musk has stated he has a part of his aspirations of doing XAI and SpaceX. See, which I guess SpaceX bought XAI. One of his foundational elements is in space, but I don't think is viable in the near future.
Bob Rose has a question.
Yes, certainly the idea of the human element, human nature, human condition, emotion, trauma. You mentioned the word trust in your discussion. Could you talk more about that? How would AI support trust in negotiations? Yeah, there are many directions it could go in, probably.
Yeah, no, I think, and we talked a little bit as well in the presentation here, but trust is often, even in our daily lives, right? And I assume Jim's book refers to this. I'll give a plug to it. What's the name of that book, Jim? But having common understanding and no, or at least accepting that the other party is working off the same understanding, same aspirations, and react. It's trust is offered, uh, but only really given until the acts happen behind it, right? So you're not gonna give the robber your gun. Because he seems like a nice guy, so you give him a gun and he's going to shoot you with it, right?
But
So it's
but how does AI support trust?
Oh yeah. So what it does is it removes a lot of the doubt and creates the assurances of some of those guardrails or common understandings that Jim just asked about, right? So that's it. You can't say, "Hey, I would never invade Iraq." And if you've already done it a couple times, right? Or you can't say the Iranians are not they're not funding aspirations in Syria when they've done it, right? So you have to AI can present those historical elements and create an understanding of what the truth is. So AI can be used to really mitigate some of the lies and some of the stated positions of leaders and in nations by just showing, okay, look, in the 50s you did this, in the 60s you did this, in the 80s you did this, and now you're telling me you want to do that. I mean, that's how you build trust, right? You take away some of the uncertainty of or the unknown. It exposes the known behaviors of past actions.
So AI can help expose those in a clearer
Oh,
way.
absolutely, yeah. And both in number and in analysis, right? If you look at the treaty violations, it can quickly gather them. I mean, we're talking seconds, right? So, and then give factual evidence, video, text, even to the point of picking. Well, we could pick President Trump. He said in XYZ's year that this was important, and he was committed to it. And then France said, "Well, says, well, hold on, wait a second. That's not. You're not behaving that, and that's not what you said. So you can get that in milliseconds. So
Mm, okay. Thank you.
you bet."
So can I share a little comment?
Oh,
And since it's my show, I'll share anyway. In the
That's
first
awesome.
week of January, I had the opportunity to attend an international conference in Park City, Utah, on the neurobiology of learning and memory. During that time, I also had the unbelievable opportunity of sitting for 40 minutes across the table and chatting with Jay McClelland. Now, that not be a name that runs off your tongue. Jay McClelland is actually the neuroscientist that taught AI how the neural pattern works. He taught AI how to do it. He's quite elderly, but he is currently employed with Google and teaches at Stanford. But in that conversation, he pointed out 3 pounds, which stays cool, stays temperature, uses very little energy, does everything AI does, not as fast, not as big, a lot slower. The human brain is still a masterful piece. 3 pounds of your body is almost equivalent. And at this time, when nobody feels that AI is going to be surpassing the brain in its total ability. AI has thousands of times more memory and much quicker. But when you compare what we have versus what the big power plants to do this, it's pretty amazing what the brain is capable of. Sorry to.
And I think the creativity element is probably tenfold more important just than the data and the response.
Can AI write a Moonlight Sonata?
Yes, it can.
It can do pretty good, but
Yeah, it would sound a lot like previously written ones. All right, Jim. What else can I help with?
any final questions? This has been super.
Yeah. Jim,
But Joe, yes.
I want to go back to that second slide, and these are just simple. I think your presentation has given us a lot to think about, and you're wonderful, mister.
Thank you.
But I wanted to know, how do you define the normal peace channel, and in how many of the 130 plus arms conflicts are we as a nation involved, and in what way?
I can take that second one pretty quickly, about 60 to 70. And we are involved 60 or 70 militarily, and we are involved in a lot of them in the other instruments of power, right? So we're definitely involved in the informational piece of it. Sometimes it ebbs and flows. If you take the continent of Africa, and full disclosure here, my son's an Africa specialist, so he harps at me all the time about this. You know, our national interest in the continent, it's relative to other continents, but certainly other conflicts. We kind of push that down, but there's an economic, he's an economist, I should say. So there's an economic play that we are involved in many of them. I can't give you a precise number. I'd have to research it, Joe, but you can rest assured that we, the United States, and in Maxine's case, in Canada, in North America, we are involved in some way. At least one of the national instruments of power, in several of them. Militarily, 60 to 70.
Dean, we are so indeed grateful for the work you do and what you bring to the world and the information you bring to us. We all thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and expertise with us. I do want to share that next month, we are extremely thrilled to bring you the Honorable Douglas Roach. He was a senator. He was a member of the Canadian Parliament. He was an ambassador to the UN. He's an educator and an author of over 25 books, the last of which was Keep Hope Alive. Highly in his 90s. We are very, very, very fortunate to have him. He is very energetic yet and still speaking on peace. It's the Honorable Douglas Roach. Maxine, he has an OC, the Order of Canada. Are you familiar with the Order of Canada?
I know what the Order of Canada, yeah.
And anyway, he also has that honor.
Yeah,
So
that's
again,
great.
you will read more about it in coming. Dean, thank you. It's just so much to think about and so much to ponder, and every day is a new day in this.